family and I took a 3.5, almost 4 week long road trip around the United States and had a blast. During that trip, there were a few things that kind of came to mind that really solidified themselves as truths in my keto lifestyle that I thought I would share with you today. And the very first thing is the fact that when you have other things to focus on, snacking is at the bottom of your priority list. I know road trips can mean a lot of really fun snacks for people. They get excited about, ooh, I don't regularly eat this one thing or that one thing, so I'm gonna get to have it on this road trip. For me, it had the opposite effect. It was more of we are on the go, we are traveling from here, there, everywhere, and we're seeing so many things that I want to discuss what we're seeing or go experience what we're seeing rather than focus on what am I eating next. So for me, traveling on the road is a great way for me to curb my snacking habit. When I'm at home, I'm in my comfort zone. I can be a lot more flexible with how I do things. Maybe I don't eat lunch at the same time as my children, or maybe I won't have the same foods at the exact same moment as everybody else in the family because I've got other tasks to attend. But when it comes down to it, I wind up just snacking more because I didn't take the time to stop and eat together. And that was kind of the catalyst for me to think about the fact that when we're on the road, we are all doing the thing together. We are all having breakfast together. We are all stopping and having lunch together. We are all going and sitting down at a restaurant together for dinner. And so you're a lot more intentional with those times. It's kind of like time blocking, but with your food consumption. So that was something I really needed to have sort of re-solidified in my brain that I kind of let fall by the wayside. Another truth that just sort of really solidified itself in my brain is the fact that when you have fewer options, you don't debate with yourself. You're limited on your options. You're not going to sit there and hem and haw over what you could have or what you couldn't have or what could I get away with. It's just so much easier, so much more simple whenever you're thinking, all I have in this cooler for lunch is meat, cheese, veggies, and maybe some low carb tortillas. Like, you're very limited. Or, you've got limited options on restaurant selection. If you're going to a tiny little town where there's, 700 people, you're not likely to find a lot of restaurant activity. So if you can find a restaurant, that's going to be it. You don't have to sit there and debate, where are we going? What are we having? What are we going to do? There's a lot of energy spent on that. And I didn't have to do as much of that during this trip, which was brilliant. We were able to take a cooler with us, which meant that I was able to pack lots of fresh food. The type of cooler that we used was a plug into the little 12-volt adapter in the back of the car. So that was super handy. We weren't having to fuss around with ice. And the next time that we go on a trip like that, I will definitely be asking to borrow that again because we borrowed it. It was so nice to have. It was a little bit loud in the car, but it was so nice to have. And it allowed us to have more fresh food for longer. I had hard-boiled eggs. I had a box full of cut up vegetables. We had a few, we had grapes for the kids, but we had our mayonnaise, our ranch, cheeses, all kinds of things that were easy to keep fresh because we had access to that plug-in cooler and we had the space for it. That's a big caveat too. We had space for it, but we were also able to focus on eating our freshest foods, our non-packaged foods, closer to the beginning whenever they were the most fresh. Always a good choice to eat your fresh food when it's not gone bad. So we didn't eat a ton of prepackaged foods at the very beginning. It was more about just eating the fresh foods that are in the cooler. And like our girls, we had, a few dry snacks for them. We had nuts for my husband and I. We had, little things. But those weren't the first things that I wanted to reach for. I wanted to reach for the fresh foods first because I knew that those weren't going to make it the entire trip. Many people feel overwhelmed and weary following a healthy lifestyle. I like to share recipe videos and show you how I practically follow a keto lifestyle so that you know you're not alone and this can realistically be your new normal. If you haven't subscribed already, I would love to have you do so. There was a drawback to being on the road for that long. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen, cooking for my family, cooking for myself, trying to come up with fun recipes. I spend a lot of time doing that. And when you get out of your own kitchen, it can be a little bit sad. You start to miss some of the things that you really enjoy making. I truly enjoy baking keto treats. I enjoy having ice cream. I enjoy having just a whole variety of food options that you really can't have on the road. So when you get back home, there's a tremendous sense of comfort and just, I don't know, relief that you can go back to using the things you always used. Our mayonnaise didn't make it the entire trip. We used that stuff up. So being able to be back home and make my own mayonnaise, or being back home and be able to use the Ninja Creamy, that's just one of those things that you can't take it on the road with you whenever you're driving by car. If you're going by RV, or if you've got a different setup than what we had, you for sure could do that. We were just in a car. And so that was not exactly an option for us. And one of the things that, I love having available to us are Ninja Creamies, especially right now that it's, end of spring, beginning of summertime. And so I felt like I kind of missed out a little bit. But once I got back home, there was something new and amazing from KetoChow, and that is the KetoChow cantaloupe flavor. This is a brand new limited edition flavor for summertime. Cantaloupe is not my favorite fruit. Let me just set that down for you right there. However, when I tried this, I was like, that is ridiculously refreshing. Oh my word. I could imagine doing like Jello salad with this and like cutting up in the little squares, mixing it up with having like strawberry cream, or just like, a whole host of different flavors. Ooh, maybe blueberry and cantaloupe. Does that sound delicious? I feel like it does. But so cantaloupe is their new flavor. And if I would have still been on the road, I wouldn't have been able to try this as an ice cream. And I did turn it into a Ninja Creamy. And then I turned it into a little float. I think my ratios are a little off, and this is kind of melted a little bit, which means that maybe some of that cantaloupe flavor will have just sort of like completely infused itself into my seltzer. I got a chunk of the ice cream. That was great. I did this with MCT oil and MCT oil powder instead of heavy cream or butter. We have discovered that we really enjoy unflavored MCT oil powder as our fat in the Ninja Creamy. Butter is great. Butter is best. For some reason, we just don't care for the texture on our palate when we eat it with butter. So finding the results to be really desirable with MCT oil powder has been a huge thumbs up for us. That's good. You can get cantaloupe for a limited time only right now. This is not guaranteed to come back. If you want to try this out, I would love for you to go click on my link to find out more about cantaloupe. I love KetoChow. It is a nutritionally complete meal replacement shake. It has protein and 1/3 of your daily vitamins and minerals. There are tons of ways that you can use KetoChow in baking or other recipes. I love using KetoChow in my kitchen as a way to create flavors that also add nutrition that I wouldn't be able to use otherwise on a low carb keto friendly lifestyle, cantaloupe being one of them. Cantaloupe may not be my favorite flavor of actual fruit, but I tell you what, as a KetoChow or a creamy ice cream, it definitely can hit the spot on a really hot day. There are a couple of other things that I learned, and I'll save the biggest one for last because that was actually a revelation unto me that I had not considered before. But when you are back home, after having had very limited choices, you now have a plethora of options. And decision fatigue can set in really quickly to the point of almost paralysis. Once you're back in your own kitchen and the possibilities are endless, it just kind of gets all up in your head. You're not really sure. What am I going to make today? Am I going to go Italian? Am I going to go Mexican? Am I going to go all American? Like, what am I doing here? When you're on the road, you're so much more limited, which means the decision-making process is a snap. And yeah, coming back home, there's a little bit of a readjustment period to having to make decisions of that nature. We didn't use a massive amount of prepackaged foods while we were on the road. We did use some. We did use some of the Quest cookies. We definitely used low carb tortillas that were purchased, not, like homemade egg tortillas that I make here at the house. We did incorporate a few prepackaged goods, but I can see how easy it is to fall into the habit of just using prepackaged items that I have a little bit of a hunger, so I'm just gonna go ahead and snag a Quest cookie, or these Quest chips. Those are totally fine. We'll just snag a bag, and that can be kind of challenging to unlearn when you get back home. It's great if you're able to put those items in their place and say those are out of house items, whereas fresh cooked food, all of those things, those are in-house items. But I can see how challenging it could be if you really got the taste for some of those things while you were on the road, and just continuing to buy them and eat them on the regular. That could be a little bit challenging to overcome, because those things do tend to have a lot higher carb count, total and net. They do tend to be very palatable, and they do tend to be very expensive, which that actually would be a drawback, but they're very easily accessible, right? Like, you can go to your grocery store, you can go to Walmart, you can go to Amazon or any of the online grocers and easily get a lot of these treats or these prepackaged items. And it's just easy access and extremely delicious sometimes, not all of them, but these things are very habit forming. And so I can see how it could be very difficult to get back to cooking from scratch consistently when you get back home and are back into your rhythm and routine. And lastly, after traveling on the road with my family for 3.5, almost 4 solid weeks, the biggest revelation that came to me was the fact that I don't actually require coffee every 2 hours, which is crazy, because here at the house, I can have coffee all day, every day. I don't need to worry about stopping somewhere and getting coffee, or will there be a place where I can go to the bathroom, or how many times is that today? Because that's gonna add up. And my husband and I, we tend to drink only black coffee. Sometimes we'll add a little cream as a treat, or very occasionally we'll have a breve latte. But, concerning yourself with where's the restrooms and how many times did I stop, how much money is that, I figured out I don't need it. I don't need coffee every 2 hours. No, I want coffee every 2 hours. I don't need coffee every 2 hours. And I didn't die